Alright, we're going to talk about action JRPGs versus turn-based JRPGs. Right now, I'm in action mode, so I have to keep talking and moving. Maybe I'll try turn-based mode to see how all this goes, so yeah, let's switch to turn-based mode right now. Alright, finally, it's my turn to talk, so... Man, that turn didn't last too long, but we're going... You know what, let's just begin the video. Hey everyone, how's it going? Total Level here as, yes, we're going to talk about turn-based JRPGs versus action JRPGs. Just a little discussion video as want to do this because, lately a lot of great games have come out recently of stuff like Persona 3 Reloads, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, and then some action games like Granblue Fantasy Relink, and of course, soon enough, we're getting our hands on Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, right? And so I kind of want to talk about this now. This isn't going to be your traditional versus of like, oh, this is far superior from this because of these reasons. Like, no, that's not what this is going to be about. And you know me, I've never been kind of like that. What this versus is more going to be is just talking about what I believe kind of both, types kind of bring to the table, kind of their pros, for each of them, right? Of turn-based and action games, right? Because there's definitely a lot of cool stuff with both of them. Now, overall, yes, I probably prefer turn-based games, out of action ones, but there's a lot of fun action ones, especially lately, right? So, really want to just kind of discuss this and everything, so, yeah, and of course you got many different types. You got kind of your hybrids of both turn-based and action, right? So, for kind of the turn-based style, you got stuff like Infinite Wealth or, your Paper Mario, Super Mario RPG, stuff like that, where you're doing kind of action prompts during your turns, right? To do extra damage or button presses to negate certain damage against you and different sort of combos you do, right? Giving you a bit more of an action feel in a turn-based game. And then kind of the other way, you got games like, say, Eternal Sonata, where you have kind of everyone takes a turn, right? But during your turn, you're doing kind of button mashing action combos, right? So you kind of got the hybrids of both sides a little bit, and then for your turn-based games, you got, your traditional turn-based, right? Your stuff like, Dragon Quest, where you're pretty much just, you can take as much time as you want, and yeah, you're, there might be team-up attacks and everything, but for the most part, you're just kind of just, scanning the battle, right, and figuring out what move you should do and who to attack, things like that, right? Then you got kind of your active time battle system, so a lot of your old Final Fantasies, Chrono Trigger, if you play on the active time battle, right, where even during your turn, time is still going, so enemies can attack you during your turn, or you'll have certain bosses where you're not supposed to attack at a certain time because they'll counter-attack, right? So you have to wait for the timer to kind of run out of that. Then you got kind of your tactical strategy type games, right? Your Final Fantasy Tactics, Fire Emblem, Triangle Strategy, things like that, right? And then on kind of the action side of things, you got kind of more of your button mashing kind of action, right? Of, your Tales of games where there's not a whole lot of strategy towards your battles, like you have to block every now and then, but yeah, especially older Tales games. Newer ones, there's a bit more to them now, but older ones were a lot of kind of button mashing combat, and yeah, you got your real-time strategy ones. Now, these ones aren't nearly as common or anything, like we have games like coming up of Unicorn Overlords, which is sort of a hybrid of both kind of that tactical turn-based and action style, right? Of kind of, strategy, right? But you also have a game like Heroes of Mana that's a real-time strategy, but yeah, these ones aren't too common. And then yeah, you got your full-blown action ones now. These are kind of variety different ones because you got more basic combat with these of, say, Final Fantasy 15, where you're pretty much just holding a button to attack. You got more free roaming ones of the Ys games, right? And, you know, near Automata, like, so these ones kind of vary, but yeah, just wanted to kind of talk about sort of pros and everything for each. So yeah, I even have notes in my notebook, just kind of bullet points, just to make sure I kind of get through a lot of these, right? So, you know, for me, I expect a lot of people to say that turn-based is the preferred mode, because one of the biggest pros of turn-based JRPGs is the accessibility of them, right? They're easy to pick up and play. You know, you don't have to overthink too much. Like certain games, yeah, there's definitely a lot of difficulty in them, because yeah, if you play a lot of old Shin Megami Tensei games, they can be pretty difficult even with turn-based combat, but you know, they're a lot more accessible than action, because not everyone can play an action game of, you know, your Kingdom Hearts or anything like that, like, you know, because they might be okay with the combat, but other stuff like platforming, you know, jumping, everything like that might be a bit too difficult for them, right? And, you know, JRPGs are typically just stay on the ground, right? And just a nice, simple, easy to pick up type experience. So yeah, like I said, you can take your time, relax, everything like that. It's really nice with them. I also find that turn-based JRPGs seem to have a lot more with the elemental damage effect on these things, right? Because when it comes to action, like, we do see it, but I'm just thinking a game like Final Fantasy 16, which I have to admit, as much as I love that game, I was kind of disappointed that there was no elemental damage in that game, right? And yeah, for turn-based combat, you really have those type of advantages and disadvantages, right? Where action combat, there's definitely a lot of that, but it's not as apparent, or, you know, you can get away with, like, a type disadvantage a lot more, I find, than with a turn-based. So yeah, and yeah, you got kind of your, you know, turn-based a lot of people like because of that chess approach, right? Where it's just, you know, trying to think 20 moves ahead of what, you know, the enemy is going to do, and that can be a lot of fun, right? Especially for your super bosses, right? And everything like that. And final kind of thing is, I find like turn-based combat has a lot better with kind of party balance than action games. Now, action games, like, it depends, because, you know, sometimes you only play as one character and all that, but, you know, a lot of them, or a good number of them, I should say, like, you have multiple characters to play as, and you're most likely going to pick and choose based on, like, a certain style, right? Whereas turn-based combat, you know, yes, there's definitely characters that you probably won't use, but a good majority you will be using in certain situations, right? There's a lot of great party balance that I find that action games for JRPGs still need to kind of improve on. And then kind of going into, yeah, the action stuff of JRPGs, I mean, one, have to talk about the combat in these games, because that's what makes these ones so thrilling. Now, combat in JRPGs, like turn-based ones, are still really great, but there's something so thrilling about, like, action games, especially for boss battles. Man, like, just playing Granblue Fantasy Relink, it's just one awesome, just, boss battles are so epic. And yeah, playing Final Fantasy VII Remake, like, I replayed that game before Rebirth came out, and man, like, just as fun as ever with the ridiculous type of combat and everything like that. And while action games, you know, sometimes have balance issues with certain characters, I will say when you get, like, multiple different characters to play as, there's a lot of variety in that kind of style, because for turn-based, you're kind of stuck with just that kind of combat, right, where, you know, everyone's going to attack kind of the same way. It's just kind of what advantages and disadvantages they have in, like, strength, magic, things like that. But for action games, you know, you got all these different type of characters to play as. You got kind of your more balanced type characters who have kind of, you know, your average kind of bars of just, you know, average attack speed and, you know, magic, things like that. Then you got your big magic users, you got your healers, you got your, you know, very fast characters, like they might be low in health, but they're super speedy, and, you know, those ones I find super fun to control are the really fast characters, right? And that's something that I think action JRPGs do have an advantage of over turn-based, because, again, turn-based, yeah, you're just kind of waiting your turn, right, and waiting, where action, you got, like, a lot of different play styles, and there's going to be multiple characters, like, ones that you're able to play as multiple characters that I think people would kind of play with around, you know, see what they like more. Now, some action games, yeah, you're only going to stick with kind of one character, but, you know, that it all depends. And then one of the biggest things for a lot of action JRPGs I find that they do better than turn-based ones is kind of the world exploration. Now, there's still a lot of great worlds to explore in turn-based ones, but for action JRPGs, like, you know, you usually have pretty big open worlds, or at least big area maps to explore, along with, like, jumping up on different cliffs and different areas to look at and get all these different items, look in these nook and crannies, right? And, you know, or if you're playing a Souls-like game, sometimes you find disaster, because, yeah, those games can be pretty brutal, right? But, you know, that exploration is just really fun in a lot of action games. Again, JRPGs, turn-based ones do have this, but not quite the same like action ones, because, again, turn-based ones are usually more just on the ground. There might be some jumping, like you get with Dragon Quest XI, but for the most part, it's a lot just kind of grounded, right? And I find, yeah, when you get, like, an Ys game, like, I had so much fun exploring in Ys 8 and 9, and playing 10, like the Japanese version of that, is a lot of fun to explore for that, right? And then kind of the final one is, you know, action games, I think, give people more of a challenge than your turn-based ones, which, again, this is going to be, it depends on who you are for this being a pro or a con, right? Because, like I said, the turn-based combat's very accessible, you know, because, yeah, sometimes action games can be very challenging, like I said, for the Souls-type games, and sometimes not just challenging, but very cheap. Like, there's one boss I'm just stuck on Elden Ring. I want to beat that game so bad, but, yeah, it's like, one boss is just destroying me, and I find that one so cheap, but, you know, they give such a challenge because you can, you know, a lot of them you can change different difficulties, or the way you play the games can give you a big challenge, right? Because I find, like, with turn-based, if you want, like, a huge challenge, it's kind of either super bosses, or you kind of have to play a certain way that the game never intended you to play, right? So, yeah, it's all depending on who you are, but, yeah, like, action games, when you do want that challenge, like, it can be very, very thrilling, especially when you accomplish it. Like, man, there's nothing like accomplishing some bad boss, like, because I beat Kingdom Hearts, on the hardest difficulty for the first time last year, right? And man, that was so, like, it pissed me off, but I was so happy that I was able to do that. So, yeah, I think that pretty much covers what I have. Like, there might be some pros and cons that I kind of miss for each of them, but yeah, like I said, I think my preferred is turn-based, but especially when it comes to newer games, like, action has really taken off, because definitely when you go into your older games, I would say Gen 5 and below, yes, turn-based is kind of, you know, probably the big, you know, better one to play, because action games, there were some fun action games back on, like, PS1, like, all that and below, but, you know, they are kind of janky a bit, right? I would say Gen 6 is where action games really start to take off a bit with, you know, a lot of your Tales games and things like that, right? But like I said, I just enjoy games. I enjoy every type of game, and I'm glad I'm this way, right? Because I'm happy that I love old Final Fantasy, and I love the newer action-oriented stuff, right? And I'm glad I'm that way, because it's a lot more fun when you like more things, right? And get to explore all these different worlds, right? Like, I want to play so many. There's still so many I have to play, but yeah, I'll leave it there for now. So let me know in the comments what you think. What do you prefer between turn-based and action JRPGs, and what are some of your favorites on each side? Because whether you like turn-based more, I guarantee you probably do like some action games, like an Ys game or something like that, right? So yeah, let me know in the comments, and yeah, I'll see you next time, everyone. So always appreciate everyone for watching, and yeah, bye, see ya. Hey everyone, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a like and comment, and subscribe if you want to see more, or if you just want to see any of my skits and then nothing else and leave the video, that's fine too. Thanks everyone, take care.